Evening, everybody, and how are we all doing today? It is Sunday, the 22nd of February 2026, 6 o'clock, which means it's time for our weekly get-together where we're going to all sit around and talk about gardening or whatever may be bothering us, or wherever the conversation leads us. Now, today I want to talk about a subject that has came up. Well, it may be the wrong time of year, really, but I think it's a good subject nonetheless. What is the best way to preserve herbs for the year ahead? Now, for me, herbs are something that I use on almost every single meal that I cook. They're a valuable thing. We use them a lot in our cooking, and I want to make sure that they last for a long time. They're also something that I think we tend to have lots of. We tend to get a lot of herbs available at, well, early on in the year, late in the year, all right throughout. And sometimes we just need a way of preserving them. So I guess the first question I'm going to ask you is, do any of you grow lots of herbs? And while you answer that question, I'm going to go through and see who I can see on the line. We've got Team Ararat over on Instagram, and Teaspoon of Soil has joined in. Let us know, what is your herbs that you grow? Adrian is there and says, hi, Richard, and all. Good evening to you. Jenny is there. Hi, everyone. Hope you're all well. There was a strange bright thing in the sky today. I can't remember what it's called, but it didn't visit me. I can tell you that. It didn't visit me here in Littlehampton. Rob is there. We've got Turbo Stream saying, good evening, Veg Podcasters. Good evening to you. Anna Jones is there. Evening, gardeners. Good evening to you. What have we got? Kate is there. Good evening, Veg Army. Good evening to you. Hargrave Gas. Evening, everyone. Hope you've all had a great week. Still very wet here in Suffolk. What else have we got? Digwell. All right, me old Chinas. Being in London has rubbed off on me. I was in London for 2 days, Digwell. It's rubbed off on me. We'll talk about that. I'll make it around to talking about that a little bit later on. Anna Jones, it's been really dry and sunny all week in the northeast. Lovely week. I wish it had been here. It's been rain non-stop, except for when I wasn't here. Good evening, all, says Scott. And Nathan is there. Lottie Chef. Good evening, all. Good evening to you. Nigel is there. Good evening, all. Good evening to you. Lovely to see you the other day. We've got Gary is there. So good evening, Richard, and all. Good evening to you. Turbo Stream says, I don't grow any herbs, so I have no idea how to preserve them. Well, this might be the chance to think about growing herbs and how to preserve them tonight. You never know. Andrew is there. Evening, Richard, and everyone. Yes, I have a herb garden, but when I went to my village last week, I saw the moles had pretty much destroyed it. Grr. So is your herb garden in your garden or in your village? Tell me more on that. I'm intrigued. Jenny says, I grow herbs, but I don't preserve any. I'm not a huge fan of dried herbs. Well, I'm not talking about just dried herbs, but I want to find out any other ways that people preserve herbs. But we'll get into that in just a moment. Hargrave Gas says, I grow a few herbs, basil, parsley, dill, lots of different types of mint, rosemary, but don't dry any. Well, it's not just about drying. This is what I want to explore, but drying is a method of preserving. Turbo Stream says, today was the first decent-ish, mildish day here. It wasn't here. Not till the afternoon anyway, but I'll get into that in a moment. Nicola, evening. So lovely. You're making me all jealous. Everyone's got sunshine, but it didn't happen here. Roxy refused to walk. It was so wet here today. Anyway, that's lovely to hear you've all had some good weather. Just please send it down my way. I would love some of it. But we were going to talk herbs. Now, from what I can gather from most of you do grow herbs. And I would love to know, what herbs do you grow? Now, the reason I came up with this topic for this week is I have got a lot of parsley still growing out in the garden. And I picked a load of parsley the other day and I put it in my dehydrator, dehydrated it and turned it into dried parsley leaves. Now, it wasn't easy. I've got to admit, it did take me a few goes to get the heat and the time just right to really get those herbs dry. And when I've dried parsley and other sea herbs like that in the past, what I've ended up with is they've lost their color. They've not stayed in that green color that you expect. They've gone dull. They've gone gray. But when I've dried them at a much cooler heat, because my new dehydrator I can actually control the temperature with, I've discovered that it actually does dry them out, but retains some of that color. Now, it did take me a while because I started off at 35 degrees centigrade, and then I've had to build the heat up. I think I ended up about 55 degrees centigrade to get that just right. But we got there. And it made me think I want to do more preserving my herbs this year, not just dehydration, although that is going to be one method, other methods that we can do as well. There we go. Let's see what everyone is saying. So Andrew says, my herb garden is in the front garden in front of the kitchen. Rosemary, thyme, basil, oregano or oregano, and a couple or more. Depends on how you say oregano or oregano, doesn't it? I used to always say oregano, and then I was corrected and told it was oregano. Now I'm going back to, or trying to go back to oregano. How do you pronounce it? I know that's a hard thing to describe here. What have we got? Anna Jones says, I have mint, chives, and lemon balm in pots, a training rosemary on the rockery, and sages, thymes, and oregano in my flower bed. That sounds absolutely lovely. Andrew, mint and chives grow wild in the orchard. Stuart Jackson has joined. Evening, Richard and Veg Army. Good evening to you. Turbo Stream says, I don't cook with herbs. Mum and Dad didn't cook with them either, so I never got the taste for them. I think you're missing out. I really do think you're missing out. For me, we have to use herbs in so much of our cooking. It really does transform a lot of our meals. Something like liquor that you might have in pie and mash, which is just basically a butter sauce with lashings of parsley, is delicious. I love having herbs, rosemary, mint, sage, anything like that. I absolutely love. Idaho is there saying hello to you. We're talking about preserving herbs and any methods that you've got. Kate says, I grow lots of herbs. I love the funky flavour of mint and rosemary and sages. I've had black currant sage, and that's lovely. Teas are great to make as are flavoured oils. So here's the thing. I said that we didn't really want to concentrate too much on dried herbs, but actually that does play into, because if you are looking at making like herb teas as a preserve, you do need to dry out the herbs. And then you can use them straight in if you pick them fresh, and you can turn them straight into a tea, of course. But if you want to preserve them and make your own tea bag type things, your own tea mixes, then it's a good idea to dry them as well. And talking of blackcurrant sage, yeah, I've got blackcurrant sage. It is lovely, as are all the different mints. But I do find with the mints, I don't know if anybody else finds this. So let's say you got chocolate mint or orange mint. They taste a bit in the beginning like they've got that flavour of what we're talking about. But then quite rapidly, they do start to, or after a few years rather, they do start to lose that flavour and just become mint. That's my experience anyway. Nicola, I grow mint, thyme, sage, rosemary, coriander, parsley, oregano, and we'll try others this year. Excellent. Anna, what's that? Nigel says, oregano is the American pronunciation. That's what I thought. It's. I guess it's where people have it too often. Nigel, in the big words, American. Kate says chive flowers in white wine vinegar is wonderful. Now, this is where I wanted to go, really. I wanted to find out other ways of making our herbs preserved. And white wine vinegar, what happens with that? Does the chive flavour and the vinegar flavour amalgamate, or what happens? Tell me what happens with that, mixing the two together. Stuart says, my herbs are both in veggie pods and some in the fruit bed. Thing is, when it comes to herbs, one of the things I think we often overlook, yes, it's a source of food, something that we can eat, but also they have certain effects where they're companion plants, basically. Dill is a good companion plant, as is chives, especially for warding away certain pests that might be a problem, carrot fly and things like that, which is a good reason to grow a few pots of herbs in with your carrots, in with your onions, just to ward off some of those pests. I highly recommend it. Nicholas says, ice cube herb oils are a good way to store. So what do you do there? What do you do to ice cube herbs? Let me know that. Jenny says, mint, lovage, I think that's Vietnamese coriander in the jungle patio. Sun-loving herbs amongst the flowers in the beds, chives and garlic, chives, fennel, etc., grown for me, and pollinators. Pollinators as well. Let's not forget they love herbs too. Digwell's tisane. So Digwell says basils, Aristotle, British, cinnamon, Thai towers, Genovese, Siam queen, lettuce leaf, piccoli. Or basically what he's saying is lots of different types of basil, chives, celery, leaf celery, that is, chervil, dill, lots of things, fennel, garlic, chives, lemon balm, orange balm, mint, Corsican, or basically he grows lots and lots and lots of different herbs there. Ice lollies, you can get molds easily, so strawberry and mint, for example. Tell me more about how you make these ice lollies. Over on Instagram, Plant Man Saul has joined. Mr. Saul Walker. Kate says tea choice flour, vinegar, gently flavors. It is so a slight pickled onion taste, and it turns it pink. The tea choice, not tea choice. Chive flour. Sorry, chive flour and vinegar gently flavors it, so a slight pickled onion taste, and it turns pink too. Okay, so it just adds flavor to the vinegar. Excellent. Jenny says, I forgot also large leaf basil that you can make into a sandwich wraps. Excellent. What else we got? Digwell, herb oils, dehydrated ice cubes, frozen. Polo, mint with a hole. Rebecca has joined. So good evening to you. Hope you are well. We're talking about herbs and what is your best way to preserve herbs for the year ahead. In fact, I'm going to ask everybody now, what is your favorite way to preserve herbs for the year ahead? What is your favorite way? For me, to be honest, I don't really preserve them that much. I like to just harvest them when I need them. Always have them growing, whether it's out in the garden or on the windowsill throughout the winter months, and then I just pick them as needed. But I do get a lot of gluts, especially with things like parsley and coriander, and I want those to be put to some use. Idaho says oregano and lemon balm grow it in my flower bed. Parsley grows it in a green stalk tower planter and also in raised beds. And then Jenny says, I keep remembering more lemongrass in the jungle. Also lemongrass in the jungle patio. Absolutely. Idaho wants to grow more herbs. See, I'm all for growing lots of herbs. I really do think we should all be growing more herbs because of the good things that they do. They are a food source. They are something that we can add to most meals to really impart a lot of flavor. But they also have the advantage that we can the companion planting is always a good thing as well. But yeah, I want to know, what is your favorite method for preserving your herbs? Now, Digwell says a tisane is a caffeine-free herbal infusion made by steeping herbs, fruits, flowers, or spices in hot water, commonly known as herbal tea. There we go. So I'm not a tea drinker really. I do much prefer my coffee, but mint tea is something that I often drink with Moroccan mint, especially when you're just feeling a little bit on the ropey side. Mint tea does go quite well. And all I do, to be honest, is I pick a fresh piece of mint, put it in a cup, pour in some hot water and leave it to steep, and then I enjoy that. It's lovely, absolutely lovely. Rebecca says, that's very interested. And tonight, I've never preserved herbs. There we go. This is what I want to get to, because I think most of us, and I'm sure you're going to agree with me here, most of us, when we grow herbs, we just pick them when we need them. And the thing is, most of us have probably got a herb and spice cupboard, which is full of things often that we don't use. But what if we could extend our garden to fill up that herb cupboard with herbs that we grow? Wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't that be great? Turbo Stream says, I've been given a lemon balm plant. No idea what conditions it likes. So lemon balm plant tends to grow a lot like mint. It likes shade. It does have an invasive habit, so it can spread and take over. So I recommend growing it in a pot. But it also likes a lot of moisture. It will probably actually do quite well in your garden, to be honest with you. It will attract a lot of bees and things because it's got a lovely aroma to it. But yeah, your garden probably grow really well there. Idaho says, my lemon balm just grows everywhere. And Kate says, 300 grams of strawberries, fresh or frozen, a handful of fresh mint leaves to taste, 1 or 2 tablespoons of honey, sugar or maple syrup, optional depending on how sweet the strawberries are, 150 to 250 ml of water or fruit. I think that's how to make the strawberry ice lollies, I think. Turbo Stream says, it's in a pot, seems to have survived the winter so far. There we go. I have recently been drinking chamomile tea before bedtime. It seems to help with sleep, so I'm thinking I should try to grow it. In fact, that's something that people often do talk about, isn't it? Chamomile tea. And I'm not a lover of it myself, but it is meant to, or it is rumored to help with going to sleep. But what you've got to do is pick the flowers, and then do you dry the flowers to make it so you can keep it on the worktop and use it when you need it? I'm pretty sure you do have to dehydrate them, but anybody got any experience of what to do with chamomile so you can have chamomile tea all year round? Andrew says, I have a drying machine to sort out herb leaves for storage, but a low-level oven would do the job just as well. Yeah, I got a dehydrator. I've got a couple of dehydrators now, and they don't use much electricity. They're not that expensive, and they do a good job. The downside of using an oven is that it can be rather difficult to just get the heat right in an oven, but it can be used. At the same time, it can be used. Okay, going on with this recipe, wash and whole the strawberries, pop the strawberries, mint, sweetener, lemon juice and liquid into a blender, blend until smooth or leave chunky if you want chunky bits, and then freeze it to make these strawberry and mint lollies. They sound great, don't they? They sound great. Gary says, the only way I currently preserve herbs is adding them to soups, stocks and sauces to the freezer. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, that works, doesn't it? If you're using them in cooking and you're making soups, you're preserving herbs. And that might be something else we need to do more of. Let's talk about freezing. We've spoken about ice lollies, soups, but does anybody just freeze the herbs? They harvest them and freeze them directly. What do you do to freeze your herbs? Let us know in the comments. Digwa says, if you like lemon balm, they get hold of orange balm. Nice. I've never heard of orange balm, so that sounds interesting. Scott says, I should grow more herbs for tisane. Am I pronouncing that right? Tisane, as I drink a lot with not drinking caffeine. I drink caffeine. I am one of those people who has always got a cup of coffee on the go. I do like my coffee. Jenny says, my biggest herb is my banana plants. In the summer, you can use a leaf for steaming or serving food. Banana is technically a herb, isn't it? I don't quite understand how that works, but technically I'm told it is a herb. I might repot it if it's like mint then. I would. It is a very invasive, but it will last for a long time. It's a good one to grow, actually. Idaho says, I will look for that. What have we got? I find 8 cans of Stella helps me sleep, says Rob. Scott says, valerian root is a good herb in tea for sleep. Can you grow valerian? It does ring a bell, but I don't think I've ever grown it. Digrat says, I use my Ninja air fryer to dry my herbs. How do you do that in the air fryer? How do you do that in the air fryer? Let us know. Let us know. Right, what have we got? Turbo Stream says, I've reduced my black tea and coffee as I have gastritis. I'm trying herbal teas, ginger, lemon, fennel, and chamomile. See, this is what I mean. When we start down this conversation about preserving herbs, I wasn't sure how well it was going to go down. And here we are quite early on. We're talking about herbal teas. I didn't think we'll go this way, but it just goes to show the part that herbs play in our life. Some of you say you've never cooked with herbs, but then you hear things like teas and stuff. So that's a good reason to grow them, isn't it? Just trim the herbs, says Digwell, and using the air fryer. Put them in a sealable bag. Suck the air out with a straw. Oh, talking about how to freeze them. Sorry. Suck the air out with a straw. Seal the bag and freeze. So just simply freeze them in a bag as they are. Anna says, washed, finely chopped and frozen in the bag is all I do. Excellent. Another way of freezing them, just chopping them and freezing. Or freeze the herbs on a tray before putting them in a bag is another way. Turbo Stream says the Veg Grower Podcast helps him sleep. Don't blame you. Don't blame you. Scott says a spoon of honey and a squeeze of lemon goes lovely in a cup of chamomile. I haven't put that on it, is it? A spoon of honey and a squeeze of lemon goes lovely in a pot of chamomile tea. I have to try it. I'm not a lover of chamomile tea, but I might try it one day. Digwell says the air fryer has a dehydrate setting, 60 or 70 C. Well, there you go. There you go. It's like my my electric, what do you call it? Pressure cooker has a function for canning, which isn't something I'm very good at doing, to be honest, but something I want to do more of. Andrew says, I also have gastritis, turbo, and am trying various herbal teas. Weak black tea is also okay. See, here's the thing. Here's the thing when it comes to herbs, is that they have a lot of health benefits that, I mean, I always think growing and eating your own veg is healthy anyway, but herbs seem to have more of a real good health benefit about them. For me, something that I eat a lot of is feverfew because it is good for headaches. And I find that just a bit of feverfew cooked in with my regular diet doesn't seems to reduce the amount of headaches that I get. Now, feverfew is a very prolific at self-seeding everywhere, but it is pretty tasty at the same time, pretty good, and one that I always grow in my garden. Well, it self-seeds in my garden, really, but again, one that I really like. Turbo Stream says, a spoonful of honey makes the medicine go down, as the popular song says. Indeed. And he also says, it's horrible, Andrew, sometimes I'm drinking more water too, talking about the gastritis. Stuart, I have frozen basil and parsley, but not very successful, but dry bay and mint. Absolutely, absolutely. Bay. Anybody got a bay tree? I've got one that I've had in my garden for quite a few years in a pot. But it struggles for some reason. I'm thinking of replacing it this year for something a bit better. We do eat a lot of bay trees and bay leaves, sorry. Well, we don't eat the bay leaves, but we use a lot of bay leaves. As I'm sure most of us who are cooking do use bay leaves. Gary, I'm learning a lot of new herbs tonight. Absolutely, it's what we're here for. That's interesting how you use feverfew, Richard. Yeah, it really does help reducing the headaches. What I like to do with it is sort of make a herb butter and then spread that on toast. And it works quite nicely. It does work quite nicely. You have to use it, though, regularly to reduce headaches. It's not something you can have when you get a headache. You just have to use it in advance to reduce the amount of headaches that you get. Digwell says, like with all foods, make sure the herb is okay for you. Feverfew, for example, can cause mouth ulcers, numbness, tongue irritation, and stomach upsets. You know what, Digwell? You have hit on something that I normally try and caveat whenever we talk about herbal for medicinal use. Something I'm going to throw out there is that none of us here, as far as I'm aware, are doctors. If you are going to use, we are not here to give medical advice. We're not qualified to give medical advice. This is all based on our experience. So please don't sue me if something happens. But as Digwell says, like with all foods, make sure it is okay with you. I'm quite lucky. The only one I struggle with is mushrooms. Scott says, Valeria officinalis is very hardy, so I'm reading. I will be trying to grow it this year. Interesting. I have heard of it, but I can't think where we could use it. What do we know? Herbal butters, and they can be frozen. Yeah. So that's a good point, actually, isn't it? Making herbal butters. So we've obviously all heard of garlic butter, where you take some, well, garlic's a herb, isn't it? You take some garlic, you crush it down, you mix it in with some butter and some parsley, and then you can freeze that and use at a later date. Well, pretty much all butters you can do the same with. Rosemary, just chop it down, add it to some butter and freeze it so you can use it as a rosemary butter, which coincidentally is very good when it comes to cooking certain recipes, because then you can just take that butter out the freezer, melt it down a bit and use it, rub it all over, say you're having chicken or something, rub it all over that chicken to get the glaze and everything else that you want from it as well. Nicola, it's so nice the daylight hasn't fully gone. It has here. Still got a very slight of solar power being produced at nearly 1830. Lucky you, very lucky you. Now, Idaho says, I do grow comfrey, but I haven't used it medicinally, just for adding fertility to the garden. When it comes to comfrey, so comfrey is a type of herb. It used to be eaten a lot, but there are people that will say that comfrey is poisonous. So we don't generally eat it these days because of that very reason. So I'm just going to throw that out there, but it does have a lot of medicinal purposes. Pitch black in Birmingham. It is here when I look out the window, but hey. Jenny has got the cook along. Make a herbal butter. Use some on a meal and prepare some for freezing. Nice suggestion indeed. Well, that feels like a good opportunity to actually go to this week's cook along. Where is it? So this week you wanted me to make something using celeriac. So let me pop this up and then we'll come back and carry the conversation on. Well, this week you want me to cook something using this often overlooked and rather alien looking vegetable, celeriac. And I think I've came up with something that you are going to like. Let me show you what we're doing. So all I've got here is a baking tin, which I've already added a bit of oil, and I've already sliced a load of the vegetables we're going to use. Celeriac obviously being one of these. See if we can sort of get these into all the places that it needs to fill. We've also got some onion, which is also going to go in here as well. And we're just going to try and build up some layers of celeriac, onion and apple, which should hopefully add a bit of sweetness to the mix and complement everything rather nicely. Celeriac, of course, is quite a big vegetable, but I think it's often one that we tend to overlook because it's not really a popular one when you think about it, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't use it. It is rather tasty at the same time. There's a lot we can do with celeriac, and I remember I recently, or a couple of years ago, went out for a lovely meal, and one of the things they had was a celeriac slaw, like a coleslaw that used celeriac. So a lot of good things that we could be using here. We just got to get this just right. So what I've now got to do is mix together a bit of a sauce. It's going to make like a celeriac gratin is the way I would describe it. So I've got 150ml of cream in here, just single cream, into which I'm going to add 3 cloves of crushed garlic. Why? Because I like crushed garlic. It smells lovely as well. I'm also going to grate in some nutmeg, and I'm using proper nutmeg here because it just tastes so much better. It smells absolutely amazing. Just give this a quick stir to mix it all up well. And then we're just going to pour that all over our celeriac apple mixture. Try and get it everywhere. Just hope it doesn't overfill the jug, the pan, which it hasn't, thankfully. Now, we could top this with some cheese if we so wanted. I'm not going to today because I'm trying to look after my weight a bit more, but I would say with all this there, I'm just going to make sure every single drop is added to the mix. Well, that is it more or less made. We've just got to cook it now, so that's going to go in the oven, which I've preheated to gas mark 4 for about half an hour, and we'll come back and see what it looks like once it's cooked. Okay, well, it is cooked. It smells absolutely lovely, and if I take a knife, yeah, it's nice and tender. So I think that is pretty much cooked. I was expecting it to be a little different to what we've got, but hey, we never know until we cook these things. Now, what does it taste like? Let's find out back in the studio. Indeed, back in the studio, and here we can see this dish, and what I really want to find out is how good it tastes. So get a nice big plate, mouthful. That is good. That is good. Really, that celeriac has a really nutty flavour to it, which is really nice and goes well with the apple, the onion, the cream, and everything else. Would it be something I order? Probably not. Not something that I would normally order on a menu, but it tastes good nonetheless. I'm going to give that a 9 out of 10. Anybody got any celeriac recipes they would like to share or ideas of what we can do with celeriac? Then please do let us know in the comments. Andrew says, like Idaho, I use comfrey as a fertilizer, good for fruits. Yeah, I think most allotment teas will use comfrey for fertilizer. It's one of those brilliant herbs that we can use. Over on Instagram, Field Composters joined. Lovely to see you. We saw you the other day at the press event. Hope you are well. What have we got going on? Celeriac mash is nice, says Digwell. Yeah, it is lovely, isn't it? This is what I mean. Celeriac is a bit of an overlooked vegetable, something we don't often think about eating, but it's the one that we need to eat more. Apple and celeriac is a great combination. I can vouch for that now. It's really nice. Idaho says, I've never eaten celeriac. This recipe makes me want to try it. It's one that I think, as I said earlier, it gets overlooked. It's not often thought of something that we would eat, but it's certainly worth it. It's certainly really nice. Thumbs up all, says Nicola. More fluid needed, Richard. I was happy with that. I was very happy with that. You didn't want it too much. It worked for me anyway. Stuart says, #mission, preserve some herbs 2 different ways, please. Indeed, we'll get back to the conversation in just a second. Well, we got Nigel says, I like celeriac in mashed potato and chopped into large chunks and added to stews. Yummy. Digwell says, it looks nice. Nicholas says, making me feel hungry, Richard. Gary said, we had celeriac in a pie with blue cheese. Oh, that sounds good. That sounds good. And then Scott says, I think there's a recipe for celeriac and apple soup and a celeriac steak recipe on the Veg Grower website. There could well be. I'm pretty sure there would be. It does ring some bells now. What was the dish that I'm going to call it like a celeriac coleslaw? I remember I said to you about it, Scott. Can you remember what it was? When I ate it at a restaurant, it was really nice. What was it called? It's like a celeriac coleslaw. Now, talking of coleslaw, let's come back to herbs. One thing we haven't really mentioned, it's been mentioned a few times actually, but preserving herbs in oil. We've spoken about drying herbs. We've spoken about herb butters. We've spoken about freezing herbs, all of which sounds very, very simple. But what about preserving herbs in oil? Has anybody ever done that? I've done it many years ago, and I couldn't really make it quite work. I just took some simple rosemary, sprigs of rosemary, and stuck it in some oil. And I mean, yeah, it preserved. The rosemary stayed good. But what didn't happen was the flavour of the rosemary didn't really impart into the oil. What do you think I did wrong? Why did I go wrong there? What do you think? Scott says remoulade. Kate says remoulade. Scott says celeriac remoulade. Celeriac remoulade says Digwell. Thank you very much. Jenny, could you write that down for me and send that to me in the message? Because we were discussing this with Amanda, what it was, because we really, really liked it. And we've got some more celeriac that we want to put to use. And that remoulade. I can't pronounce it very well, but it was tasty. It was so tasty. So we'll have to give that a try one day and see how we get on. But yeah, coming back to storing herbs in oil. Has anybody done anything with storing your herbs in oil? As I said, I put some rosemary in some oil. The idea being it was going to be some Christmas presents, but it just didn't really impart any flavour. What would you say? What have you done like that? How has it worked for you? Digwell says herb oils are usually short-lived. Yep, that's my understanding as well. They don't have a very long shelf life, but they're just a way of preserving some herbs and imparting some of that flavour into the oil. Over on Instagram, Traditional Garden Growers has joined, another company I was talking to the other day, which has got some exciting things that we're hoping to talk about in the future. Stuart says, like, subscribe and follow. Just a reminder. Yeah, please do like, follow, subscribe, and all that jazz. Scott says herb oil, best to blanch the herbs in boiling water and chill before blitzing with oil, then pass through a fine sieve. Okay, so what I did wrong then by reading that is I just took a sprig of rosemary, washed it, stuck it in a jar, and then poured over oil, and it didn't work. You reckon to blitz the two together would work? Digwell says, I just boil the oil to draw the herb flavour out. Boil the oil. Okay, that's something else we could do. And then Scott's Potter. Is that the middle finger up to me? How rude. I can't. I'm joking, of course. It's just how it looks on this screen at the moment. So herb oils is something I'd like to explore a bit more of. And so I'm guessing by the sort of reaction at the moment, not many of you have done herb oils. Is it something you would like to do more of? Would you like to get into more herb oils? And if so, what would you like to do? Scott says blanch soft herbs, cook on a low heat in oil for hard herbs. Not the middle finger. I know it looks like it from here. What herbs would you recommend for this then, and what oil would you recommend for this? What would you do for this? I think everyone would love a recipe on this. Very a recipe or an idea on what to do here. Would it be something like parsley or coriander or rosemary or sage? And what oil? Olive oil, rapeseed oil, avocado oil, any of those? What would you recommend? What would your thoughts be? I'm opening this up more. I want everyone to answer this, of course, but I'm opening this up to everybody. Kate says basil. Well, basil, of course. One of the big things, and I would class this as a bit of a herb oil, but it's not. Pesto, where you take basil, olive oil and pine nuts, and blend it all together to make that delicious pesto. Love pesto. I've got to make more pesto this year out of the basil that we're going to grow, because that is something we do eat a lot of. Digwa says, whatever oil you like with any herb you want, in my honest opinion, I do oil. That's a good answer. Because I find this sometimes that when you talk to chefs, and obviously present company, don't take this the wrong way, of course, but when you hear chefs talking on the TV, they talk about using certain oils because of the smoke point or the flavour. But to be honest, I very rarely notice any difference in the flavour of the oils with whatever I do. I tend to use olive oil a lot, but I very rarely notice any difference. So thank you for that. Scott says this is probably going to be a bit different, but things like parsley, tarragon, chives, parsley, double parsley there, blanch in boiling water and then blitz with a good olive oil. Leafy Keith has joined. Hello, everyone. Hello, Leafy Keith. How are you today? Nigel says, good reliable variety of celeriac I grow is Asterix F1. Third time lucky. Fingers crossed. Asterix F1. Good choice. Do like celeriac. As I said, it's something we need to grow more of. I think it's often overlooked. What have we got? Scott says things like rosemary and thyme simmer in olive oil on a very low heat for a long time. So would this be something you could do in, say, a slow cooker on a low heat with olive oil and rosemary and thyme in there? Digra says need to watch out for botulism with things preserved in oil, as there is no acidity or salt. Again, a lot of the things that we talk about when it comes to preserving, like we said about medical, please do your research. Please don't blame me if you get ill or anything. Just make sure you do your research before you do anything. Because I've never had botulism, but I hear it's not very pleasant. I preserve a lot of things, but I've never had a problem with botulism. But it is right to be wary. I mean, nobody wants any type of food poisoning at all. But on that note, Gary asks a good question. How do you avoid botulism? Heat. So I'm trying to remember where the exact details. But it is a case that you have to heat it to a certain temperature to kill off any botulism that might be in the oil or might be there. I can't remember the details off the top of my head, but yeah, heat is it. But you can also get it with, well, not so much preserves, but well, you can get it with preserves, I guess. Anything you do. It's, again, you've got to be clean. Keep your kitchen clean. Keep your utensils clean. Like you should do with cooking anyway. How long would you keep the oil once you made it, says Stuart? Good question. How long would you keep your herb oil once you made it? I believe it needs to be refrigerated as well. It's not one you can just keep out on the sideboard. It does need refrigerating. Scott says extra virgin olive oil will burn at a fairly low temperature, i.e. you wouldn't want to fry with it, for example. There we go. There we go. Okay to make a herb oil, but it will need to be used within a month. There we go. 1 month. 1 month. I preserve my house in Castrol GTX just to change the oil every 10,000 miles. Oh dear, oh dear. There's always going to be one, isn't there? There's always going to be one. What else have we got? Kate says, another thing you can do is dry them and add to magnesium salts for nice bath soak. I also add dehydrated rose petals and last a while in an airtight jar. Again, I think this is another thing. So as I grow food, and this is something I've always said, is I grow food, but I also, like to grow things in my garden that we can use for our health and use in our house. And growing things that we might use to make our own sort of aromatic bath salts, I guess is the right word, is putting our garden to the best use possible. We're making the most out of our garden that we can possibly get. I used to grow eucalyptus. I had a eucalyptus tree, and I used to take that and run that under the bath water when I was running a bath, and that was quite nice actually. Adding the eucalyptus, things like that are good. Scott says, I like the idea of bath salts. Something else I need to try. Told you, we love lots of ideas like this. Digwell says, I tried, but the shower head kept washing them off me. It's meant to be for a bath, not a not that. Yeah, but I get the idea. Well, is there any herbs that people grow that people are a bit unique? Anybody grow a herb that's a bit unique that people don't really think of? I think when you go in a supermarket and you're looking to buy herbs, it's the standard ones that you might buy fresh would be obviously parsley, coriander, basil, chives, and mint. They're probably the 5 most common herbs. But then you go to the dried herb section and you get a lot more choice. Things like fennel, which you can foliage and the seeds. In fact, herb seeds is something we haven't talked about, isn't it? Fennel. We can usually find dill amongst the dried herb section. What other ones would there be that we wouldn't normally find fresh when we want to buy them from a supermarket? What have we got? Digwell says orange balm, almost unheard of in the UK. I've not heard of it myself, so that's a new one to me. I know there's some good herb companies out there that I'm going to go and find that from. Kate says cola herb. I've heard of that. Curry herb. Again, I've heard of the curry. Tried to grow the curry herb, but wasn't very successful with it though. I did have a bit of a problem. Scott says, where do you get the orange balm from? Digwell. I'm going to guess Urban Herbs would be a good place to start. Kate says hate fennel. That's a shame. It's a shame. I quite like fennel myself, but I get why you don't like it. I do get why you don't like it. It's got quite an aniseedy flavour. It may not be for everyone. I've just had an alert flash up on my phone that somebody has just said hello everyone on one of the other videos instead of joining this. What have we got? Digwell says he got his orange balm from the USA. Excellent. Imported, hopefully legally. Jenny says olive herb is my absolute favourite. Olive herb. I've heard of olive tree, of course, because I've got an olive tree grown in my garden, but olive herb, never heard of that. Jecka McVicar is another place they would sell orange balm. That's another place you might want to look. Fennel is good for digestion, says Turbo Stream. Indeed it is. Mushroom plant is nice. I've heard of that. I've never got around to growing it though. Urban herbs, you get funky ones from there. Yeah. Or Jaker's Herb Farm, says Nigel. Lots of choices. Lots of choices. Digwa says his olive herb died off when it was 6 inches tall. I've never heard of olive herbs, so that's an interesting one to look into. What was a herb that's supposed to taste of oysters was mentioned on this live once. There is a herb, I can't think what it was called. There's also salsify, which is meant to taste of oysters. I wouldn't class that as a herb, it's more of a vegetable. But salsify, you eat the roots, if I remember correctly. Gary says, is it fennel or dill that is bad for other plants? Dill is, I think dill's meant to be a very good one for other plants. It's got a lot of companion planting about it, but I could be wrong. Not the sea vegetable. Oh, there was another one. I can't think what it was. Digwell says, all legal and above board when brought from a packer supplier. Yeah, that's the key thing. Get your plants from a packer supplier. You know, I'm not one for being for abiding by rules. Well, actually, I am one for abiding by rules. That's not true. But when it comes to importing things, we've got to make sure we do it the right way. Otherwise, we could potentially bring in diseases and pests that we don't want. Amanda, that's me. Sorry for being daft. I'm watching the TV, but went to the message on my phone, clicked on the wrong thing. Welcome along, Amanda. I saw the notification. I thought, that's wrong. Jenny says, olive herb tastes just like olive. I add it to flatbread dough. Delicious. I'm gonna find that. Jenny, can you add that to the notes along with orange balm as well, please? Sorry, I know I'm asking a lot from you. Digwell says, just searched and found that King's Seed sell orange balm seeds. All right, I'm going to contact them and get some of those as well. Stuart says, I've been growing herbs for the last 3 to 4 years. The supermarket herbs needs to be kept inside, as most of them are grown indoors by the growers. I'm with you on that, Stuart. So supermarket herbs are generally pretty awful. Let's face it, when they're in the supermarket, these are the herbs that you can buy from their herb in pots, already grown with roots. Let's face it, they're under a very artificial light. The chances are they're not being looked after very well when they're in the supermarket. They're not the best herbs, to be honest with you, to grow. You can do it if you know what you're doing, or if you can coax them back into life, you can look after them. You can often get them so they can be grown outside, but it takes a while to get them to that state. You do have to have them indoors for a bit and get them into some real proper light. But yeah, they're not the best in many ways. Jenny says, I'm not sure if my olive herb has pulled through the winter. I'll have to check. Mine gets approximately 20 centimetre-ish. That's olive herb. I'm really intrigued with this olive herb. Digwell says, fennel is bad for most veg as a companion. Dill is the opposite. There you go. Dill is the opposite. I thought it was dill that was good. Suffolk Herbs have orange balm seeds for sale. Suffolk Herbs is another one. There you go. Is anyone else freezing? Might be my internet. I hope I'm not freezing because I've got expensive internet here. Kings get them from Suffolk Herbs. We'll do. Don't know what I've got. It's frozen twice for me, Kate. 2, Kate, but only for a second or two. Okay. Well, I'm not getting any warnings on my end, so I don't know what's going on there. I can only apologise. Gary says connection is good for him. Good. Right. I'll tell you what, we're going to go to this week's mission. It's a bit of a long video here. Just had a screen buffer, says Nigel. Perhaps it's just been a bit slow, but we're going to go to the mission, which was, funny enough, Nigel's mission that he set. But let me show you how we got on. Okay, this week I'm setting up my diesel heater. Now, this diesel heater I got as a Christmas present, but I haven't yet set it up in my greenhouse. Now, this isn't going to be a completed project. One of the things we do need is power. And for the power, I've got to take out this tree and another tree before we can even look at doing it. But let me show you what we're doing. So like I said, we're just running it off an extension cable here for the time being, which we'll set up in a minute. It's powered by a 240 volt transformer. Now this here is the air intake, which I've got coming out that side. That is the exhaust, which is I expect to get hot. So I've sort of run that to go outside. And this is the actual diesel heater itself. And the hot air comes out of there. Plants are in the way, so it's not easy to do this. But let's see what we can do. Now this is a toolbox style diesel heater, which is what I wanted for Christmas, because the plan is we could also use this when we go camping. But everything is inside here, just opens up like that. And if we look, let me show you what's going on in here. The diesel tank, which is just done through that. And that is the mechanism that gets everything hot. So first of all, let's get some diesel in this. It's the first time I've done this since getting it, which is a bit of a shame. I need to make a proper sort of setup for this, because this is going to be a little tricky to do, to keep it here, and it wastes a bit of space, but get diesel in there anyway. I'm not going to fill the tank right up just yet, because we'll probably come back to that in the future when we need a bit more. Who knows? Who knows? Right. Put that down there. And close the lid. So in theory we ought to be able now, we plug this in. Welcome to use the heater. It says welcome to use the heater. The instructions on this are absolutely rubbish. So this is the controller, but what I can't see is how to use it, because the instructions on this are absolutely rubbish. I cannot find any instructions. One of the things I know we need to do is purge it. So that looks like a timer. Set to here. Input password. Okay, that's not what we want. Try turning it off and on again. Aha, right. So, is that a purge? No. There we go, that's what I want to do. Begin. Manual. Pump wheel. 20 seconds of pumping. So that should hopefully purge it. Power on. Okay, it's doing something now. Now, one of the key things I've said is about having the exhaust coming out so that we don't end up with carbon monoxide poisoning. So that is something I'm keen to be safe on, but also I don't want anything catching fire. So let's see. Okay, I've had this running for a couple of minutes. I can feel there's air coming out of there. Whether it's warm or not, I'm not sure, but I can hear the fuel pump and everything doing what it should be doing. I'm going to give it a few more minutes and we'll see if it warms up in here. Right, I think I celebrated a little bit too quickly because it ran and then it stopped running because it said it was having ignition failure. So I'm just priming the pump for a little bit longer this time, just to see if we can get a bit more diesel into the ignition chamber and see if that makes any difference. Okay, so I think I've spotted the problem. When I put in the diesel and tried priming it, I don't think I put in enough diesel. My mistake, so we're going to pour in more and try again. Right, we're giving it another try. This is a third attempt. Just hit power. It's doing its warm-up, start-up procedure, whatever it does. Well, there's smoke. You won't see it on camera, but there's smoke coming from the exhaust. And yeah, it's starting to smell, which is what I expected, probably burning off all that. What is that getting now? Burning off all that stuff that it probably came with. So far, so good. In fact, it's starting to sound a bit like an incinerator. Now, I'm going to keep a close eye on this because obviously I don't want anything to catch fire in here. This is always one of my concerns, but I think we've definitely got ignition this time. Wow, that's quite noisy. So you can see it's getting a little bit smoky in here. I'm not overly worried at the moment, but it is quite loud. I think that will quieten down with use, but I'm going to give this a good half hour to run, burn off all that chemicals and stuff, and then we'll see how well it is in here. It's definitely warming up in here. I can feel the difference. Okay, so it has been running in the greenhouse for about half an hour now. I've checked on it a few times. Nothing has really happened. So a little bit on the noisy side, but I can tell you what, it's nice and warm in here. Very nice and warm in here. So I'm going to turn it off and pack away the electrics. What we're going to have to do at some point is actually figure out how we're going to put this in here properly, because I don't like it at the moment. It's just a little bit too difficult to use productively. We're probably going to make a stand up or something, but diesel heater is here. First of all, we've really got to run the electrics. That's going to be the major thing, but really nice and warm. Really nice and warm. Back to the studio. Indeed, that was, let me bring this over here, that was the diesel heater in the greenhouse. Now, it was a very quick run through. I'm actually quite glad I did that, because had I done that with the view that that was going to be the permanent solution, I don't think it would have worked out in quite the same way. By doing that dummy run through, as I've called it, I've realised that what I need is like a table to sit it on, and we got to try and get although the exhaust was out, I wasn't happy with the exhaust coming out near the shed. I wanted it to exhaust out somewhere a bit better. So we've learned a lot. We've learned a lot with that dummy run. The first thing, of course, I've got to do is get some electric power down to that shed into the greenhouse as well. But it was so warm in there once it had been running for a while. It was really, really warm. Over on Instagram, Darren Bale has joined. Lovely to see you. It's been a while. Hope you are well. What else have we got? Digwell says, I make my own dried herb mixes. Italian, Asian, French, British. So what herbs do you mix to make each herb mix? Let me know. Let me know what you mix. Stuart says the video is running well there. Digwell, a bit of a word of warning. When you come to use it in earnest, make sure to power it from a 12-volt battery. If you do it from mains, then there is a power cut, then the main PCB will mount. There is a risk, even with a 12-volt battery, that could happen. But yeah, it's just when it runs out of power and doesn't have a chance to cool down. But yeah, something to think about. Anyway, Nigel says, make sure to have a CO2 detector when using the heater. Also, very true. Very true. I've got one in my garage. I would have one in my greenhouse. This is part of the reason why I've gone for diesel anyway, because I don't want... I didn't want a naked flame going on in there, but it's really nice. I really like it. Man that says, #mission, take the time you'd usually spend doing a mission for a cup and a bit of cake at the allotment. Put your feet up. Yeah, we do that in the summer. I mean, it's so wet and miserable in the allotment at the moment. It's horrible. But yeah, that's on the. He could win. That's on the thing. Gary says, does it have a thermostat to stop the greenhouse getting too hot? It does have a thermostat, but I mean, it got up to 30 degrees according to the thermostat in there when I was in there. So it's pretty warm. What I haven't figured out is how to get the thermostat to work. The instructions on pretty much all these diesel heaters are usually rubbish. That's because they're Chinese made. There's usually two types of heaters. You got Chinese or Russian, and Russian are pretty much impossible to get hold of these days. So the Chinese ones are the ones we tend to get, and usually the instructions are rubbish. Darren says over on Instagram, all good, my friend. Good evening. Good evening to you too. What have we got? Stuart says, I gave my greenhouse heater away. Cost too much to run, so I now use the spare room. Well, this is one of the reasons of using a diesel heater compared to an electric heater or a paraffin heater, is that in theory, it should be cheaper to run if we get it set up correctly. But two, it won't show on the bill, so my wife won't get upset with me when the electricity bill goes up high. But three, with a greenhouse heater and a naked flame and a wick, it always worries me that it's going to cause problems with having a naked flame inside a greenhouse. So that is why I went for a diesel heater. But yeah, heating it can be expensive. Jenny says that is a mission I could manage. Digwell says, no, use a small car battery charger wired up to a 12-volt car battery, then power the heater from the battery. Battery will last 24 hours if there is a power cut. Indeed, what I did when I did that test is I've got a 2000 watt power pack, one of the big ones. I actually ran it off that, and that was quite effective. So that would be something I would look at doing in the future. Nigel says, I got an inline device that will switch to backup 12-volt battery in the event of power failure. That's a good idea. Can you send that link to me, please, Nigel? I'm interested in that. Digwell says the heater must have its cool down fan from working when it's off cycle. Yeah. That it makes perfect sense. If you suddenly lose the power and it's trying to cool everything down, like I said, it got quite warm in there, and the PCB and everything else could melt. So it wants to run that fan for a little bit longer, just to cool everything down and stop everything from melting. So a battery backup is a good thing. Definitely something I want to do. A USP, uninterrupted power supply, is what we need. Amanda says, it's my only mission each time I visit the plot at the moment. I set up a chair and a table in my polytunnel so I can stay dry and watch the birds. Lovely. Yeah, unfortunately, it is that time of year when it's just so wet at the moment. I know a lot of you have been saying that it's been a very dry day for you, but it's been so wet here still in Littlehampton. The only day that was dry was Tuesday, which of course was, I say, of course, some of you will know, some of you I haven't mentioned it to. Every year, I go to the Garden Press event, which was on Tuesday. Some of you guys were there as well. And of course, the Garden Press event is indoors. It's a media thing. It was a dry day, wasn't it? It was a dry, sunny day. I could see out the window, and I was stuck indoors all day, and even had a day off work for it. But good event, in fact. In fact, next week, I've got boxes of stuff that I need to go through from the Garden Press event. These are merchandise items. I want to go through them with you and tell me whether you think they're any good or not. That's what we're going to do next week. We might do a little bit in a moment, actually, if we get time, but we'll see. Digwell says the PCB is actually mounted on the heat exchanger. Poor design, not like the Webisco that they copied wrongly. Yeah, there's some good, like I said, there's some good heaters out there. There's some bad ones. I just think for a greenhouse, it's a good way of heat, except for the noise, of course. Good way of heating a greenhouse. They are also intended for heating vehicles, so lorries, ambulances, camper vans. They will all have these sort of diesel heaters as a way of heating up the room that people are in. The cab, more than the cab, but keeping the people in there comfortable. So there's a lot of good things about these diesel heaters. Nigel says paying 90p a litre for red diesel now on low setting. The heater will run for around 10 hours on 1 litre, which is plenty, isn't it? That is plenty. Yeah, 90p a litre for red diesel still is quite expensive in recent years. I remember when red diesel was like 30p. Only trouble with red diesel is I've got to travel for quite a way to get it, so I'll probably just use normal diesel because the saving I make would be lost in travel. Digwell says, probably said it before, but my car has a Websco built in. The engine is too small to warm the car up quickly. Yes, you have said it before. It's good, isn't it? It's good, these diesel heaters. I love the way... I've got to admit, I got the idea off Nigel Bunny Boots. It was his idea to heat the greenhouse using a diesel heater. And I've just sort of copied that. Nigel says the heater will be quieter if you have the silencer outside of the greenhouse. Yeah, I'm going to play around with that and see how we get on. Obviously, I'm more worried about my neighbours as well. I don't want it being too noisy for them, but we'll figure that out. Digwell says, how about biodiesel? Yep, it'll run on biodiesel. I believe it also run on most oils. So, it's paraffin and things like that. So it's multi-fuel. Rob says, I didn't think you could get red diesel now. Yep, you can if you know the right place to look. It just takes a while to find the right places. Right, so it feels like a good opportunity to go through Richard's rant or rave of the week. This week it is a rave. I'm in a good mood, and it's because of what I've just mentioned. Tuesday, I went to the Garden Press event. Now, a bit more background. I go to the Garden Press event pretty much every year. It's intended for people in the garden media to go and chat to brands about products that the brands want to get into, get seen by consumers through the media. So things like magazines, TV, podcasters, YouTubers, Instagrammers, radio, basically it's all there to get the brands seen. And I had a great day. I went up on the Monday and met up with Lee Connolly, the school gardening coach. Had a bit of a wander around London throughout the day, and then we met up with a couple of other people. Saul Walker from the Talking Heads podcast in the evening for lunch. Stayed in a hotel, and then on the Tuesday morning, the day of the event, we went for breakfast. Met up with Digwell for breakfast, and Digwell's recommendation for a cafe, spot on. It was a good breakfast. Then we went to the Business Design Centre in Islington where the event was. Saw Nigel in the foyer there. Muddy Boots. Saw quite a few other people, and then we were allowed in and had a great day wandering around, making connections, chatting to people about products. A lot of good stuff on the market. Nothing really groundbreaking at the moment, but a lot of good stuff that I'm seeing come out, which I'm keeping an eye on. So really good day, I've got to say. Really good day. Really enjoyed going to it, as I do every year. What was really good is the vibe and the fact that we get to meet up with people again. After the winter where we've all been inside in the cold, it was nice to meet people like Nigel and Muddy Boot and Steve Digwell. It was nice to meet up in public, in person with these again and have a nice chat and things like that. So yeah, it's a really good vibe, and that has put me in a good mood for the week. What is it? What have we got? Digwell says, and if you extend the exhaust pipe, it will add heat to the greenhouse and make the heater more efficient. That's my idea. I've just got to be careful it doesn't melt any of the plastic items that I have inside the greenhouse, my autopots and stuff. This is why I'm glad that I've done this dummy run, as I'm calling it, to get a good idea of what I need to do. I've seen Nigel's video, Buddy Roots' video of how he set his up, and he actually built a little table, which is what I think I need to do on mine. One, so I can make connecting and disconnecting from the exhaust easier, but two, so I can really get it set up properly, really enjoy it, and get the heat coming out correctly. Biodiesel is as cheap as red diesel. I wonder where I can get biodiesel from then. I'll have to look into that. Nigel says, have run mine on kerosene. Oh, excuse me. Also, but it does burn so hot. I alternate fuel types as it reduces burn chamber from choking up. Yep, good idea. Good idea. Lots of good things. Digwell says the Autopot Spider Matrix looks good. It is very good. That I've got the not the spider. I've got the one that got the long one in the garden. That works really well, really well. But a Spider Matrix would work good as well. Did you meet Autopot at the event, Digwell? I was going to ask you because I know somebody else said they were asked to meet them, but they weren't there. It was weird. Rob says, I do like the sound of liquid fish, blood and bone. And like that as well. That was a good substance. Looking forward to seeing how that gets on. His local petrol station sells biodiesel. Something to look at, isn't it? Something to look at indeed. Yeah, that liquid blood, fish and bone, really interesting. So see how we get on with that. See how we get on with that as well. This is what I mean. This is why we go to these events, because you find out about these interesting products that brands are trying to get seen, basically trying to get seen, marketing at the end of the day. And we're very lucky when we get to attend it. So yeah, very, very lucky indeed. Shall we have a look at your photos? Now, I would say I've gone through the forum. I did all these about at 5:30. So if any photos have been posted since 5:30, you probably won't see them. But all the photos that I did see at that time are here. So I've just realised I can't actually see it on this screen. So what we've got here, Steve has sent me this photo, posted this photo of his scarecrow, and he says that no pigeons have been seen since this scarecrow went up. Well, if it works, it works, and that is the good thing. I was also spotted with my body double at this event. So here's me at the back, and further down, you can see my body double. What it was is I actually sent him ahead to deal with all the mobbing crowds while I could get on and chat and talk to the people that I wanted to talk to. So, yeah, my body double was there to a bit of security for me. You know what it's like with these sort of things. Tom, he shared this photo as I put on the podcast last week about grow lights and how they are such an invaluable tool. And Tom agrees. He's been growing these aubergines since October. Kate has shared this conversation, and it's, when you talk to people at parties or do's and things, and they hear you into gardening, they're not really ready for that conversation, are you? They're not ready to get tied down, but it's all go. It's all go. She's also been lucky enough with the weather today. She said it's the first good day that she's had to get outside, and I believe she's preparing this area for chickens. Excuse me. You're going to love the chickens. You are going to love having chickens. Looks like a good area for them as well. Good luck. Let me know how you get on. Back to Steve, and he shared this article. Now, this is about the peat-free. People are pulling out of peat-free. And it is a trend at the moment. A lot of people seem to be pulling out of this whole peat-free movement. As you know, I am a peat-free gardener. I gave up using peat a few years ago, but it has had problems. Let's face it. It has had problems. It's not been perfect. It might be the right thing to do in some people's eyes, but it has had problems, and a lot more people are going back to it. I'll let you decide whether you think that's right or wrong. A lot of mixed opinions on it. Now, Nigel, he shared this photo of his Vitapod photo propagators. Now, I really like these Vitapods. I think they've got a lot of potential in them. They're heated propagators which look a decent size, and you can actually expand them. I believe you can also add grow lights as well. So they look like very good propagators. He also shared his onions, which are grown inside these and are growing on strong, certainly much stronger than mine. They look great, don't they? Doing very, very well indeed. Now, please do keep sharing your photos. You can post them in our Facebook group, send to me via social media, or email me, richard@veggrowerpodcast.co.uk. That's richard@veggrowerpodcast.co.uk. Please do share your photos. We really do love seeing them, and we want to see more and more photos, especially now we're going into March. 1st of March is next Saturday, so we want to see everybody's plot photos. Just take a photo of your plot at the beginning of the month and share it with us. We want to see it. Absolutely do want to see them. Let me bring this screen back over here. And what have we got going on in the comments? Yes, had a long chat with Ian from Autopot. Excellent. So you are going to the product launch. Have you been invited to that? Rob says, especially with my spuds, talking about that liquids, blood, fish and bone. Pissing my sheets laughing. Oh, I swore there. I shouldn't do that. Digwell says, I asked my scarecrow if he's going to add a 10% tariff on my plot. What did he say? Did he give you an answer? I keep meaning to take some pics of the attic. We'd love to see him, Rob. Honestly, we would love to see him. I think it'd be a good idea. The thing is, we all meet up here every week. Not everybody has a YouTube channel. Not everybody watches stuff on YouTube. It would just be good to get an idea or a visualization of what we're all talking about, wouldn't it? As well, we all meet up every week. Let's see what everyone's doing. Let's have photos of it. It'd be really, really good. Right, let me get rid of that. We are now going to go. What are we going to do? We've got to do the draws. So first of all, let's do the cook along. And we've only got the one draw, which I think, I can't remember what that was. If anybody can remember, that would be great. I can't even do that draw because it won't let me. But whatever it was, let me know what the cook along suggestion was. Now, we did have 2 missions, I believe. There we go. 2 missions that came in this week. We've got between Amanda and Stuart Jackson. What do you think it's going to be? The herbal butter was the cook along, and the winner was Stuart Jackson, which was similar, if I remember, 2 ways of preserving herbs, if I'm not mistaken. Absolutely. And Digwell says the celery remoulade. No, I think it was the herbal butter, but I am going to try and make that celeriac remoulade if I can find a good recipe for it. Now, as I said, next week, I hope you're going to be okay talking about this, but I'm going to go through a lot of the products, the brands that I met last week, because I've got huge boxes coming down here in the studio with me at the moment, and there's more coming through the letterbox every single day. But these are all products that people want to see in action. So I'm hoping we can go through it together, see what you think of these items, see what you think or your initial thoughts are. I'll tell you what, we'll do one quickly now because we've got a couple of minutes to go before the end. And this particular item has been bothering me for a while. So it's this pack that I got from Robert Dyer's. What's been difficult about it is Roxy's got a real liking for these gloves, so she's been taking them out. They're weed and seed gloves. Here's the other one here. I think they're going to be a little bit too small for me. In fact, I can say they're a little bit too small for me, these gloves, but they'll go behind me as decoration. What else have we got in this box? We've got some seeds. There's some radish seeds there from Unwins. So simple radish seeds, that should be good. And then we've got some tools. Not my normal type of tools. We've got a trowel, secateurs and fork in this sort of lovely, what do you call it? 3-piece garden kit with highly decorated. Not my normal sort of tools, I've got to say, but actually these feel quite solid. Interesting. So what do you think of those? Do you think they're any good? I tell you what, let me open up these trowels. We've got a couple of minutes to go. Yeah. This is a trowel. So actually, that is quite solid. It's much stronger than I thought it was going to be. I thought with this decoration, these were going to be something that look good, but are actually rubbish. But I'm actually genuinely quite surprised how tough they are. They feel very, very solid. And there's no giving them. I'm putting quite a bit of weight on this, and there's no giving them. So, what do you think of those as your initial thoughts? I've got a bit of that celeriac stuck in my throat. Nicholas is looking forward to hearing about products. Excuse me. Sorry. Yeah, I think that'll be next week, but you get the idea of what we're going to do with that brief introduction. Digwa says, I only took things I knew I would use. I was the same. I only took things I'm going to make content from. I only spoke to people that were good. All my viewers would like. Yeah, same here. Jenny says, all look good to me. And Nigel says, why not put some of the freebies up as raffle prizes for viewers? Because I feel, well, we all know somebody that would give away stuff that brands gave him. So I'm always very careful about giving away stuff for that very reason. I've got to make content out of these. That's the way I look at it. I've got to make content out of these. And that's why I don't feel it's right to give freebies unless the company has said it's okay, which I've got something in the pipeline at the moment. So keep tuned for what happens there. Looks like we might be joining you in championshipping. What's going on there? Sounds like it will be interesting next Sunday. And Digwell says, that's what I'm doing, Nigel, getting sent stuff, especially for that. Yeah. Anyway, right, it is now 7:30, but you've got an idea now of what we're going to be doing next week, which we'll be going live at 6 o'clock again next Sunday. Hopefully, Hopefully you will all be joining us for that and have a bit of a chance to see what everything's about. It's been really good catching up with you. Hope you have learned something and inspired to try and grow some more herbs this year. Don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to follow and subscribe and all that on the way out. I think that's just about it. So thanks so much once again. Good night, everyone. I'll see you again next Sunday. Until then, please take care.